Meeting to order, Town of Winslow, Maine, Town Council meeting, Monday, September 13th, 2021 at 6 p.m. There is no public hearings tonight. Regular council meeting. Could I have a roll call vote, please, Tanya?
Peter Drapo,
Yes.
Ben Twitchell,
Yes.
Jerry Caleb, Joseph Gravel,
Yes.
Jeff West,
Yes.
Lee Trahan,
Yes.
Ray Karen.
Here. If we could all rise and face the flag and recite the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. To start the meeting tonight, we're going to do a little tribute. Roland Michel, a longtime council member of 40 years, recently passed away, and we've prepared a statement here to read tonight. It is with great sadness that we inform you of the recent passing of Roland Michel, a longtime member of the Winslow community, 13 days after passing of his wife Ann. Roland and Ann were married for 65 years. Roland often said, if you're going to take from the community you live in, you're going to have to find ways to give back. And did Roland Michel ever find ways to give back to his community? Roland was the first director of the Winslow Park and Recreation Department and installed many of the first playground apparatus in Winslow. Roland was also very instrumental in establishing the council, town management form of government here in Winslow in the mid-1960s. Roland served for close to 40 years on the Winslow Town Council, working many of those as chairperson. I was very fortunate to have served with Roland during my early years on the council. Roland also served in the Army during the Korean War conflict. His children remarked, Roland left a mark on us all, a mark that has enhanced our lives in ways we can never repay. Dad, your final mission is complete. Rest in peace, soldier. You have served family, friends, and community with honor and distinction. The town of Winslow would like to express our sincere condolences to the Michel, Carter, and Lubia families for their great loss. And we're also going to bring up out of order tonight because Peter has some other commitments. Resolution number 39-2021, providing for the authorization for the school board to name a portion of the new playground after Steve Frank. Be it resolved by the town council of the town of Winslow as follows. Whereas Steve Frank was the longest tenured principal in the history of the Winslow Elementary School, whereas the Winslow School Board has voted to dedicate a portion of the new playground at the Winslow Elementary School in his memory, now therefore be it resolved by the Town Council of the Town of Winslow that the Winslow School Board is authorized to name a portion of the new elementary school playground after Steve Frank. What's the pleasure of the council?
So moved. Second.
And seconded. And Carl or Peter, if you'd like to come up.
Carl has done an incredible amount of work on this, so if you'd like to say a few words, you may.
Sure, thank you. So I had the opportunity to be here a few minutes early. I know many of you probably have read this handout, so I'm not going to go through that entire piece, but just a couple of things. You know, in 2005, when I was looking at the assistant principal job here at Winslow Elementary School, one of the things that caught my eye, you know, if you're looking for employment, you probably are checking out the place that you're maybe interested in. And what really sort of drew my attention was the fact that he had been a principal for 20 years in the system. And, you know, I quickly learned that he'd been the only principal in that building. And in this entire period of time, you're really on your third. I was able to take over as principal after Steve retired in 2010. I've stepped back into the assistant principal role, so you now have Erica Gower. So I think it's an incredible, you know, he left an incredible mark, and as noted in here, there was only one other principal at the time of his retirement that had been in one school longer than Steve had. And that's a guy by the name of Bob Stevens down at York High School who had stretched have at least 30 years down there. He was a major force in the construction of that building. He took a lot of pride in it, and I appreciate your willingness to consider this request. He was a pragmatic leader. Sometimes, I've gotten bold print here, he would ask for forgiveness rather than permission to do some things to get it done. He brought laptops to our staff and a number of other initiatives. The one that's still very positive today is the responsive classroom training that we've all been through. He started it. We had 50 people trained at the time of his retirement. We've trained another 55 since then. And that's especially important during this period of time when the responsive classroom model really helps support the social and emotional needs of our students. And it really also helps establish the culture that we have, that Steve also established as a family-first school community. So again, the rest of it you can read there. He was a colorful character. His father was a lighthouse keeper. He was born or brought home, I guess, 10 days afterwards to Wood Island Lighthouse. And then he moved to the Portland Lighthouse with his family when he was 5 so he could attend public school. He was a character by all, if you knew him, you probably knew some of his stories. Mr. Twitchell was just speaking about one that he and I were a part of there that will give us a smile and a chuckle. Luckily everybody's fine as a result of that. But there's a story out there that the railing around the Portland Lighthouse was put up for him because he rolled off his tricycle or bicycle when he was there as a youngster. So anyway, I think it's fitting that a piece of the grounds there and the buildings will be named in his honor. So thank you, and have any questions?
Yeah, putting a new playground in over there?
We did. It was actually completed last spring.
Okay.
So we have a third unit. You're familiar with that playground. We sort of had the big and the small and the big.
Yeah.
And we did the best we could to sort of draw a lighthouse or watchtower theme. So there's a couple of design pieces that we selected out of our choices that sort of maybe will be recognized as something in his honor. And picked a color that was one of his favorite colors, and there's a few other things going on there that sort of has a, I guess if you use your imagination, a coastal theme.
Awesome,
So,
thank you.
Yep. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Question. How come just a partial portion of the playground? Why not the whole playground be dedicated to him?
Well, I am not sure how those words were crafted, but it was my intention to have it be the Stephen and Frank playground. So I don't think it has to be relegated to just one area. So I don't know if that means you've got to change some language in your resolution or not. I wasn't going to raise that issue. There'll be a sign of some sort of importance put up over there, and probably nobody will really know where the boundaries are if you leave it as it is. But I'd certainly be in favor of that if that's a change that you need to make.
We can amend, I believe, right?
Mr. Chairman, yes, you can.
We can amend if you would like that, we can amend this ordinance for the.
Yep, okay, there we go.
Okay. Would somebody like to make that amendment?
Might as well.
Second?
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ben.
I just gotta get the wording, let me just see here, portion, dedicate, why don't we just cross out a portion, dedicate of, and could we have board had voted the new playground at the Winslow Elementary School, how's that, to dedicate the new playground at the Winslow Elementary to his memory now? Is that okay?
Yes.
Is that okay with the council?
Yep.
Okay. So if we could vote on that amendment to strike a portion of, to dedicate a new playground at the elementary school. Can I have a motion?
Motion.
Motion?
Second.
Second by Ben. All those in favor to change the wording, raise your right hand, please. Unanimous. So now we can vote on the actual resolution number 30. It says no further
So
discussion
move.
on
Second.
39, 2021. All those in favor, raise your right hand. All those opposed. Is this a resolution one reading, or we have to do two?
one reading.
It's one reading, okay. So that's good. Thank you very much, and I'm sure that's a knowing Steve, a little bit as I did. And thank you very much for coming and representing, and we thank you very much.
Not sure if we'll be able to pull it off, but we've got a couple of dates to keep in mind. As you see here, he did pass on October 10th. I don't know if we can pull this off between now and then, but his birthday was also April 1st, so that was sort of fitting for.
So have you, when you do dedicate it, if you could let us know, and some of us would definitely like to come over and just be witness to the ceremony at some point in time.
Sure.
Okay. Okay. If I could get a approval of the minutes of the previous meeting, August 4th and August 9th. Jerry and Ben, first and second. All those in favor, raise your right hand. All those opposed. Communications tonight, presentation by Mr. Patrick Adams on the Pedestrian Safety Action Plan. That was delivered to us, I think it was, what, Thursday or something of last week? Pardon?
I don't remember what that.
Okay. That's okay.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Patrick Adams. I'm with Maine DOT. I'm Maine DOT's active transportation planner. In that role, I deal with bicycle and pedestrian issues with communities across the state. Approximately 4 years ago, back in 2017, Maine DOT began what became known as the Heads Up Pedestrian Safety Project. It was a result of an increase in pedestrian fatalities across the state. Maine experienced almost a doubling of pedestrian fatalities, and Maine DOT worked with a variety of interested parties to identify a strategy for improving pedestrian safety. Because of limited resources, one of the things that we realized early on is we couldn't do everything everywhere. So we started looking at those communities that had the greatest exposure. We identified 21 communities across the state that had more pedestrian crashes than other communities. Those 21 communities represented only about 29% of the state's population, but represented 68, almost 69% of all the pedestrian crashes, and about 33% of all the pedestrian fatalities. What I have to confess to the group who's here, in the interest of full disclosure, I have to say that Winslow was not one of our higher priority communities, and that's a good thing. You weren't one of the communities that had higher numbers of pedestrian crashes, but you were adjacent to one of the communities that have higher crashes, and that's Waterville. And we felt that there was a strong likelihood that people who were in Waterville would come to Winslow, and people who were in Winslow would come to Waterville. And so we wanted to work with the municipality to create a forum, create a process for identifying challenging locations in the community. We held 2 separate public forums, as you had mentioned earlier. We didn't have huge turnout at either of the meetings, but what we did was we talked about pedestrian safety issues. We gave people an opportunity to do some map exercises and worksheets to help us identify problem locations and prioritize those locations. We then met with municipal staff and we did a virtual road safety audit of those locations to look at why these locations were so challenging. What were the contributing factors that made it dangerous for pedestrians, and what could we do to improve safety at those points? The second forum that we did was about behavior and attitudes. How can we change the way people do things? And we looked at it from the standpoint of both drivers as well as pedestrians. And there are really 2 ways to change behavior. One of them is through education and awareness. The other piece is through enforcement. And enforcement doesn't always mean handing out tickets and all the negativity that comes with enforcement. What we saw was an opportunity to work with local law enforcement to raise community awareness about pedestrian laws and pedestrian safety, and to create informational materials for distribution, including such things as reflective slab bands and reflective adhesive strips to help make people more visible. We took all that information and created this document that I hope you all received and maybe even had a chance to look through. There's a lot of information here. We attempted to collect all the data that we received from people who live, work, and play in Winslow, and try to present it in as easy and straightforward a fashion as possible. There's a lot of information here. I would encourage you to look at this as a buffet. You do not have to eat or take every item that's in here and attempt to implement them. Like a good buffet, you pick and choose what interests you most, what you think will make the biggest difference in your community. We at Maine DOT, this is only a part of the process. We see this as an ongoing relationship with the municipality to help improve conditions. We want to work with you to help prioritize the recommendations that are in here, to find out what you think will make the biggest difference in your community. And Maine DOT has made a commitment to not just provide the technical support and resources, but to also put a financial commitment to it, to work collaboratively with the town to help deliver many of these items. I don't want to go through all these in a lot of detail. I've found in the past that it's best for me to stop talking and find out what you have for questions or comments.
What's the average pedestrian or bicycle accident rate in the town of Winslow?
Annual?
Could be annual or semi-annual.
I don't have the statistics here in front of me, but if I remember correctly, if you combine both bicycle and pedestrian, I think you're averaging about 1 to 2 crashes per year. So it's not huge.
Since I've been on the council, we've had meetings with the DOT about, pedestrian safety, and more so even about bicycle safety. Because riding my bicycle around town, the place that I avoid all the time is Benton Avenue, just because of the shoulders are not down to the exterior. We had China Road and Augusta Road. Those are very friendly for pedestrian, very friendly for bicycle. We met with the DOT, and it just, with the way the funding is right now, as people will get into bicycling and recreation type activities, but yet it's about cost to some extent.
Ultimately, it does come down to that. What we're experiencing right now is to just widen the shoulders on a road such as Benton Ave. We're looking to add about 2 feet of shoulder. Will cost us about $1 million a mile, if we're lucky. And that's if we have good conditions. We don't have right-of-way impacts. We have minimal stream crossings, things like that.
Yeah.
And that's just to widen the road a little bit.
So none of this was figured on Benton Avenue when the plan was to redo the road?
Correct.
This wasn't a thing on that?
This project started in 2017. If I remember right, it was when I first came, that first form that's in here. We started October 25th of 17.
All right.
is when we did our first meeting. We did it at the school, if I remember right.
Yeah, I read that. So what's the cost? What is the state, what do you think they're gonna put percentage-wise to match town funds?
So right now, what we have planned is an 80-20 split. We'll put in 80% of state and/or federal funds, 20% local match, as long as it's tied to these projects and we can work with the town.
So I noticed most of these were state roads, so,
It does not matter to, state roads are the ones that were identified by the residents.
yeah.
But my funding and my program work on whether it's a state road or a local road.
So as we move forward, Erica, as we move forward, we will keep in mind these recommendations with Paul, and as we do roads or look at the intersections with the school and with what we're doing, this will be part of our culture here to take the recommendations in where we see fit and where we can afford. And so we'd have to apply for, when we see a project, as part of our project, we would have to apply for the funding.
Correct. And the applications right now are July, what is it, 30th? 30 days, has September 31st. July 31st.
We have until the 31st
of July.
of July to.
So we
to
just
do this.
missed the previous cycle.
So if we wanted to do this, we would have to get our act together very quickly here. Well, not next year, it's next year, right?
Next year,
Yeah.
yeah.
So we'll pass, I lose track of time.
So you can't go retroactive. So if the way this road is getting fixed now, this is the time to do all that stuff at the sidewalk.
I don't know what point they're at with design, and I think we're too late.
Yeah, if I might, Patrick came to meet with us earlier this year, January, February.
Something like that.
We had a meeting, we brought, Paul was there, we had both police and fire chiefs, we had Peter Tivitot come in, and we all sat down and talked about what recommendations were in this. As far as changing Benton Avenue, that design was already in place, so Benton would be a significant cost. However, there are recommendations in here that can still be applied on Benton Avenue, such as some of the crossings and things that
Right.
were recommended in there. So while we can't widen the shoulders at this point in the program without spending a significant amount of money, there are other recommendations in that report that we can apply moving forward.
The crosswalks are what really concerned me, especially across from the
Yep.
fire station.
Exactly.
I mean, I was a firefighter and I saw people get killed in front of the fire station over there. I mean, that definitely could use.
High speed, wide
Yeah.
road.
It'd be nice if we could do some of that as part of this project.
What I would propose is we schedule a meeting with Paul and with Erica, with the school board, police, and we come in and we actually sit down and look at the recommendations and see what some of the priorities may be. And we may be able to, we don't need to just focus necessarily on one area. If you're looking at upgrading crosswalks, what we might be able to do is look at numerous locations and roll those all into a single project to make those work.
You know, my concern is that, you know, we're gonna be paving to some extent this fall.
But that's not going to affect crossings.
So that's not gonna affect crosswalks,
No,
so that would be an
because
addition.
You can always, the crossings have to do with, and jump on me if I'm wrong about this, Patrick, but that's striping, signalization,
Working on landings on
Yes.
both sides.
yep, so you may have curb cuts and stuff that aren't there right now, but those are things that can be done after the paving, so we can still get that kind of
So the
stuff.
signs aren't electric, so they wouldn't have to dig up any part of the road surface.
If we opted to put in what are called the rectangular rapid flashing beacons, which are the wigwag
Yeah.
lights, those are solar operated.
All right.
And so you don't need to do any underground work beyond just getting the base.
So these recommendations, we're gonna get a meeting between the parties necessary, and then make a path forward and see what the recommendations are, and get a cost figure, and then
The theory,
we'll work forward on these recommendations.
the theory on these recommendations, the recommendations and the guidance were derived through public process.
Yep.
The Bicycle Coalition of Maine helped facilitate this process. They created the draft document. They're supportive of everything that's in this document. As the bicycle and pedestrian coordinator for the state, I rewrote it. It meets my standards. These have been presented to everybody at Maine DOT. They've in theory been approved. Through Federal Highway, they've been approved. And we also reviewed them with municipal staff. So in theory, everybody's okay with anything that's in here if you want to move forward with it.
And I'm
Thing is
okay
price.
with everything that's in here, because I did read the recommendation portion of it. To get it from here to actual implementation, it doesn't do any good if it's
Nope.
between these two covers.
And that's
What
been my
happens is
commitment.
if these are worthwhile recommendations, if there's an action plan and we actually implement some of these,
Right.
that's where I need, or I think we feel that it, and we might decide that it might not be, at this point in time, the best options here, but we should at least be aware and make those decisions based on these recommendations.
And we see ourselves as a partner in this process. We're not going to strong arm you towards any of these. We want to work with you in this process. Please understand, from the state,
Yeah.
please understand that I work with federal dollars as well. Things don't happen overnight.
Yeah, but
It will be a 2 to 3 year process.
you did some good work, and let's give it our best shot to implement some of the findings that we can at least
Yeah.
be aware. And I'm sure Erica will be right on top of that,
And our hope is that this becomes the foundation. This isn't one and done. This is actually an ongoing process because things are constantly evolving and changing.
Okay, I think we're pretty much done unless somebody else has any further questions at this point in time. Just, thank you very much,
If
Mr.
you
Adams.
had to widen out the shoulders where some roads don't have shoulders, they got a drop off, that could be 4 feet. Problem is the wider you go,
The more
you
it
might
goes.
go outside the existing right of way, which causes other problems.
That's why I said best case scenario,
Yeah.
the cheapest it's ever going to be is $1 million a mile. If we're looking at drop off, we're looking at right of way, we're looking at extra drainage issues.
Yeah. Well, thank you for your time and meeting with the town and your time and effort, along with all the public works and the police chiefs and everything, and the superintendents for that work.
And I think you guys still all know how to reach me, and we can set something up.
Okay.
As we move into winter, it starts to calm down a little for me, and I'm not on the road as much, so I've got more free time.
You got any cards?
I do.
I also have all of his contact information as well.
You aren't going to sell these, are you?
Oh, yeah. You got your home phone?
Okay, well, yeah, as he's passing out, we can move on to Board of Committee appointments. KB Cog, General Assembly, Jerry Kieran, reappoint, and also name in Erica LaCroix as second rep.
Thank you.
What do we need for that, just a show of hands?
Yeah,
or-
thank you.
Is there any discussion on those two nominees? If there's no discussion on those two nominees, all those in favor of Jerry Kieran reappoint and also name Erica LaCroix, raise your right hand, please. Reports of committees and commission, town manager's report.
Thank you, Chairman, esteemed members of the council. End of August means we're all back in school. Peter's staff, Kyle's group, trying to keep everybody safe and healthy at our schools, and want to recognize them and appreciate all their efforts in doing what's not always the easy thing these days. So, but thank you for keeping the kids safe and keeping them in the building. I think that's really important. That does mean, too, that we're coming to the end of a lot of our construction plans. They're approaching final phases. And we've had another busy August with all kinds of stuff. We had a very successful Fort Halifax Days. The annual audit happened in August. We had a lot of people picking up nomination papers. The dam issues have come back along the Kennebec River, and we've been talking brown-tail moths. And to that, I will recognize that we have the Waterville Mayor in our audience tonight. Hello, Jay. Nice to see you. Fort Halifax Days and the 250th anniversary celebration was a huge success. We sold most of our T-shirts and all of the commemorative coins. I want to say a special thank you to Susan Collins and her staffer, Michel, for commemorating the town's birthday with a congressional record. There is a recording of that if anyone wants to view it on the Facebook page. Amanda took that. I do want to personally thank our fantastic Parks and Rec Director, Amanda McCaslin. She's always got so much on her plate, but somehow she always seems to find the time to make these events a huge success, and this is no exception. I also want to thank all the committee members, volunteers, performers, vendors, and businesses who made that event so great this year. Our Public Works crew has been busy working on the town office parking lot. It's a much bigger footprint than our previous parking lot was, if you noticed that coming into there. That will give us a whole lot more parking spaces and also give us a wider track for our police department to get in and out of there when they're responding to emergencies. At the time of this, we were waiting on the new digital sign. We now have the digital sign. We're just waiting for the electric supply to get hooked up. Tanya and I will be attending training to learn how to actually use it and put messages on it this week, correct? Friday. So very cool. I didn't notice. We can program messages months in advance if we want to, so they go up automatically. Makes it hard to forget. So we're going to have a hard time making excuses if we don't do it right. So anyway, thank you to Paul's crew and to Steve Martin's staff for the parking lot. It's looking really good out there. Sale of the Maple Ridge Farm was completed in August without the Maine Farmland Trust easement. I did meet with Adam Bishop, who is the Maine Farmland Director, and we discussed how these projects could go more smoothly in the future. This was the first time they had worked with the municipality. I didn't understand that. I don't think any of us understood that, and they didn't understand our procedures, and I didn't understand theirs. So we had a really productive discussion about how we can collaborate in the future when these types of projects come up, and how we can make it better for any potential buyers in the future. So it was a good meeting, and we both left the table with a commitment to work together in the future if the opportunity should arise. There were 2 regional meetings of interest. On August 23rd, I met with the towns of Fairfield, Norwalk, Skowhegan, and the city of Waterville regarding relations with Brookfield. Most of us have pretty positive relationships with Brookfield, but we did identify some opportunities for improvement where it comes to the 4 lower Kennebec dams, particularly with communications when there's going to be operational changes such as planned drawdowns or shutdowns. Some other stuff that I don't want to go into, but largely we have a good relationship with Brookfield, but we feel that there can be some improvements made, and we're going to continue to discuss that regionally. These 5 communities are also directly affected by the future of the Shawmut Dam. Shawmut it did receive its relicensing approval from FERC, but was denied the DEP, so it's going to be resubmitted by Brookfield. They have to resubmit within 60 days to reapply for that license. So more to come on that. On August 31st, I met with the towns of Fairfield, Oakland, and the city of Waterville to discuss brown-tail moth mitigation. Thank you to Councilman Klepak over in Waterville for putting that together. We don't have the kind of money to invest in it that Waterville does, and I think the other communities felt that we didn't have the funding available to do what Waterville is doing. Waterville's putting a $100,000 investment in combating brown-tail moth, but what we did come up with was coming out with a regional public information campaign that we could all have the same message and be giving people the same resources to try and combat this on their own, and also to start collecting data within our towns that can be analyzed at a later date and try to kind of track where we're seeing hot spots, where there may be migration patterns, and just be able to kind of keep track of where that situation is going. So it was a very productive meeting, good collaboration between the communities. We'll be using our Dude Solutions asset management system to track that on the Winslow side. I'm checking into whether we can also do that for the other communities, so it all resides in one database. And that's a nice feature because we can overlay it on a map. So it would be a good way to be able to track where they are and where we're getting complaints. Project updates. The junior high environmental study has been delayed. It was supposed to have been finished by September 8th, but Craig Wilson, who is our gentleman from Icon Environmental, has lost a staff member, so he's delayed by about a month. Given that we are holding the school open just in case we have a COVID outbreak, we're keeping it open for the year. I did not feel that that was a critical delay in this project, so rather than go find someone else to do it, I told them that we were fine with the 1 month. Our phone system upgrade, we really don't have any updates. We're still waiting on Consolidated to schedule the work. We do have all the equipment in place. We just need them to actually get us on the docket. The Noontown website is moving along. We're working on the site map right now with Revise. We should have that any day now, and then we're going to begin working on migration of content. The old website will be in place until we get the new one up and running, so there'll be a little bit of testing period where the new website is in beta, but right now it's looking really good. The Bangor Time payroll system, we're in the process of working through some bugs, and whenever you have a new piece of software, there's always going to be some bugs. So the project's been delayed a little bit, but I always feel that it's better to get it right than to hurry. So we haven't launched the automated payroll system yet, but it is coming. We're also waiting for our IT department to do some work down at Public Works. They have to get the clock completely hooked up and connected. So we're looking to launch that still this month, but we need to schedule some meetings with our employees and make sure that we've got things at least 98% to be able to move forward. And lastly, Dude Solutions, that is our asset management system with the silly name. Kickoff meeting was scheduled for September 1st. We had that. I'm more excited about it now than I was when I presented it to you all, because the things that we were talking about for setting this up and the things that we can start collecting data on, I totally geeked out on the data. So my nerd side came out 100% when I was dealing with them. So I'm just really excited about being able to track facilities, parks, playgrounds, vehicles, just simple work complaints from the public, and having that interface on our system. So it's going to be a great thing, and I think it's going to be a good deal, not only for the town to be able to track where we need to do work, where we're putting our resources, but also an easy way for our public to interact with us and get things taken care of. So that's all I've got.
Just a question on Ben Avenue. I know you've answered this 100 times, and with me too, but the paving for the fall, are we paving the whole thing, or what's the story?
The entire stretch will have a fresh base coat. We will not do the final paving on the whole thing. Half of it will get done this fall right now. That's what we're on schedule for. Whatever we can get done prior to the asphalt plant's closing, the rest of it will be done in the spring. So, but we should get at least half of it done.
Okay. Anything, Erica, and I don't think Paul is on tonight.
He is not on.
He's not. Anything with Sunset Heights up there?
We're still in the design phase on that one. We're trying to secure funding for that through RDA. Not a whole lot of movement on that because design is kind of the part of that takes quite a while to get up and off the ground. But next step really is to secure our funding.
Okay. There was, back in the spring, we approved some money for cutting a trail on railroad tracks to Chaffee Brook, I believe, for the old pipeline. Is that, I keep going down there, but I don't see any action down there. Is that postponed or?
I will have to check with Paul, but I believe that work actually was done. The clearing was to make sure that it wasn't so much to develop a trail as it was to make sure that we had access for any service vehicles that needed to go down there. And it needed to be kept clear for, well, basically for any service that has to happen. It's not a trail in terms of recreation or anything like that. My understanding is it was done. I know we did get calls from some people who weren't happy that we were going to be encroaching on their easements, but that's kind of necessary, and So I know the notices went out for everybody that the work was being done, but I will have to follow up with Paul to make sure it was done. I think it was.
Yeah, it is done. Okay. Okay.
I think,
Any other questions for Erica?
yep. I believe, when are we gonna finish Millennium Drive turning lane?
So we're waiting on Mantor to have time to schedule us in. Mantor is the contractor. They're going to be able to get to it in early October. We are having them bill us out prior to that, and the reason for that is our funding. We have to have the NBRC grant finalized by September 30th or request yet another extension, which they didn't sound real keen on. So rather than request another extension, we're just going to have the project billed out as complete and close that out, but they should finish it in October.
Because when I went by today, see barrels.
Yep. You are correct, sir.
Any other further questions for Erica? Department reports, any questions on the department reports? No questions on? Can I have a motion to accept all the town reports? First and second. All those in favor, raise your right hand. All those opposed? Any public comments tonight, Erica?
I did not receive any communications.
Okay, going through to old business?
Do we have
Yes,
anybody?
go ahead.
The brown-tail moth, how is that gonna be handled with the following communities?
So like I said, it's going to be an information campaign rather than a broad scale. It's not a one-size-fits-all approach. So one of the discussions we had was that between the communities, what works for Waterville isn't necessarily going to work for Winslow. What works for Winslow isn't necessarily going to work for Oakland or Fairfield. And Fairfield and Oakland in particular have $0 to put towards any kind of broad-scale pesticide application. It's also not necessarily a wise way to go, and there's a good possibility that for every person that wants you to do some broad-scale pesticide application, you're going to have another 2 people who are upset that you're doing something about it. So the plan is to develop an informational campaign that goes through the moth's life cycle, where you can best interrupt that life cycle, what time of year you can get in there and destroy the nests, things that you can do to keep them from nesting on your property, things like making sure that your lights are turned out between 10 and 1 in the morning, 10 p.m. and 1 in the morning, because that's when they tend to be the most active. So limiting your outdoor lighting. There was a bunch of things that were gone over that are mitigation, and that's what we're kind of going to do, is try to create an information campaign around all of that all of us will be putting out the same information as a group, so that all of our residents hear the exact same thing.
Could we include some of the other communities, such as Benton, Vasboro?
We can certainly share the information with them. You know, at this point, we had the one meeting. There's no reason we can't. I mean, obviously, the Moths don't observe boundaries. So,
They haven't been educated.
right. So, and they don't read, so they're not going to stop at the Winslow line and not go over into Benton or vice versa. So, certainly, it's worthwhile to reach out to them and at least share the information that we've got. And I have no problem sharing with our surrounding communities. So.
If I could ask the Waterville people that are here on the brown-tail moth, have you had a presentation by somebody to come in and go over the scope or educate on the brown-tail moth?
So luckily, we have a resident biologist who's a city councilman. Oh, I'll go up there. I was gonna speak anyway.
Thanks, Jeff. Get on there.
I'll end it real quick.
2 minutes.
And I really just want a really quick thing to say, how can we get educated? Whether somebody could give us a presentation at one of our meetings or something, you know, one of your selectmen or anybody could. I guess I'm not familiar with the brown-tail moth or anything, but just really quick, Jay, if you would.
I consistently try to loan out ClePack, so if you'd like them to
come talk to you. I mean, he's already done one presentation. I'm sure he's still developing this information that we're going to be putting out. We're all doing it together, but
Yeah.
I mean, you're more than welcome to come to one of those. I'm sure we'll have at least one or two more before we're done.
Okay.
Right now, we're still building that information. We want to make sure that have one unified message going out to all of our residents. And for any of those other towns, they're welcome to show up. I mean, we're there, we're not keeping anybody out, we're no locked doors. Everyone's welcome to come, share whatever information we have, and if they have some ideas that we haven't thought of, let's get to them.
Yeah, and, you know, if we're gonna allocate money for that in the future, we definitely wanna know the scope of the problem and, you know, educate, I'm sure, myself on what
Yeah.
the extent of the problem is.
Did you not get it
and
this year?
What's the chances are?
Did you not get it this
Well, I
year?
got it, of course I did. You know, of course I did. But, yeah, we'd like to, maybe at the next meeting, council meeting, we can get somebody in for a quick presentation of 5 minutes or so.
Yes,
on
I
Browntail
believe-
Moth light cycle.
Tom was going to share the presentation that he had, but also we're working on, again, a shorter, condensed presentation that's a little bit more digestible for the common public.
Yeah, that'd be great. I
So-
think that's what we need. Any questions for Jay?
Yeah.
Well, go ahead.
Has anybody been in touch with state of Maine?
Oh, yeah.
What do they have for funding?
So that's still all up in the air at this point. That's part of why, as a community, we decided to call it a public nuisance. Other communities have done the same. The more people that make noise at the state level, the more they're going to pay attention. Obviously, there's going to be some. I doubt there's any money out there right now to go at this at scale. It's going to take some of the communities to step up and do it on their own first, and then
Okay.
the state will come around. And if they don't, well, we're sort of going to rely on ourselves anyway, so.
Okay. We'll keep working and we'll keep communicating, and somehow some information can get back to the council by the next meeting. That would be great, just to start the education process. That'd be great. Thanks, Jay.
And actually, you guys skipped, sort of jumped over public comment. I'll wait till you guys are done, but I'd like to have a few words. some
Yep,
time.
it's actually up next after the department reports.
All right, done
So-
deal.
I'll be back.
Okay. Okay, we are now at, we just approved public comment. We're actually at the public comment section of it. Anybody want to have a comment? Sorry about that.
Point of order,
Yes, go ahead.
he's not a Winslow resident.
Does it have to be a Winslow resident or for public comment?
I don't think public comment has to be, and the council makes up the rules about public comment. So it's not in the charter at all.
Go ahead, Jay.
Appreciate it.
Public comment is limited to 2 minutes, so.
I'm going to try to be really, really quick. Thank you all for having me for a couple minutes. As Erica said, we got to sit down a few weeks ago. We got to talk about a few things that work for Winslow. As she said earlier, not everything that works for Waterville is going to work for Winslow and vice versa. But I believe that there are a lot of things that we can do together that we don't. I would say that although we are two towns, we are one community. There are lots of things that Waterville is doing now that is the correct way. We are lowering taxes. We're moving forward. We have a lot of development going on. Our residency is, we're getting more residents. We have a housing crisis. Winslow has a lot of room. You guys have some houses. If Winslow was on 95, you would be Waterville. You would have a lot more opportunity than you currently do today. However, I think it's time that, as you say, Winslow needs to come start talking to Waterville as council members. Come talk to our council members. You shouldn't have to be waiting for the last minute to find out information when it comes to Browntail and what we're doing. I think if we shared some more time together, that we would find that we have a lot in common and a lot of things that we can do together so that we all thrive. I hope you take us up on that offer to come to one of our city council meetings and openly discuss with our council some of the things that would benefit both Winslow and Waterville. Erica alluded to, we're going to spend some money on Browntail, that we've got some extra in Waterville. And although that may be true, that money belongs to residents. It's not the city's money. All of it belongs to the taxpayers. We're doing good things with that money. We're investing it for the future. And I hope that
You've got, like,
Winslow,
around 10 seconds left.
I hope that
know
Winslow will
it's not
do
what I-
some of the same with
Yeah.
us.
Yeah.
So please, join us at a meeting, any sort of setting where we can spend time and figure out what works for all of us. And if you want any sort of proof that we are one community that's pulling away, is there a battle of the bridge this year? There isn't. We're losing our community. And if we don't work together, it won't be the same in the future.
Thank you very much, Jay.
Thanks, Jay.
Moving up to old business, providing for an amendment to ordinance number 24-1972, Chapter 2, Administration, Article 4, Public Cemeteries, by adding the underlined language and deleting strike-through language in Section 223. What's
So
the council's pleasure? So moved, seconded by Ben. Discussion? This is the second reading on this, I believe, on this ordinance. So, ordinance, we need a roll call vote, if no further discussion.
You need a
Tanya?
movement to vote.
Hmm?
You need to move it to a vote. Someone needs to move the vote.
We had a first and second.
Okay.
Then we had a first and second.
Yeah.
And so discussion, if there's no further discussion, can we have a roll call vote, please?
Peter Drapo,
Yes.
Ben Twitchell.
Yes.
Jerry
Yes.
Kirian, Joseph Gravel,
Yes.
Jeff West,
Yes.
Lee Trahan,
Yes.
Ray Karen.
Yes. New business,
Mr.
ordinance
Chairman?
number... What? Go ahead.
Just one question. Can we do the appointment this evening or no?
I don't believe so. I think you have to wait
We have to wait the
till,
30 days?
yes,
She has on the
because
agenda
it's,
for October too.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
I'll say Jeff.
Yeah.
New business, ordinance number 10-2021, providing for an amendment to ordinance number 5-2021, personal rules and regulation for town employees by revising the employee benefit section of the personal policy and regulation handbook and adding the adoption of domestic partner coverage. So moved. We'll go Jeff first, seconded by Ben. Any discussion?
Is this mandated by the state and the feds?
no. It's up to us whether we want to provide domestic partner coverage or not.
Any further discussion? If there's no further discussion, can I have a roll call vote, please, on ordinance 10-221?
Peter Drapo,
Yes.
Ben Twitchell,
Yes.
Jerry Kirian,
Yes.
Joseph Gravel,
Yes.
Jeff West,
Yes.
Lee Trahan,
Yes.
Ray Karen.
Yes. Ordinance number 11-2021, providing for an amendment to ordinance number 5-2021, personal rules and regulations for town employees by revising section 6, employee benefit section of the personal policy and regulation handbook and adding the June 10th holiday to subsection 6-1 holidays and adding an additional week vacation under subsection 6.6 vacation leave.
So move.
Second.
Jerry, and seconded by Jeff. Any discussion on that? I think we've all read it.
That's all mandated by the Fed, right?
The Juneteenth is mandated by the Fed. The issue with the vacation time is to match our union contract so that everybody's on the same level playing field.
If there's no further discussion, can I have a roll call vote on ordinance 11-2021, please?
Peter Drapo,
Yes.
Ben Twitchell.
Yes.
Jerry Kirian,
Yes.
Joseph Gravel,
Yes.
Jeff West,
Yes.
Lee Trahan,
Yes.
Ray Karen.
Yes. Order number 27-2021, providing for authorization for the town manager to contract with Dave Wolf for the installation of heat pumps in the town offices, including Park and Rec and Police Department, per the attached quote for a cost not to exceed $48,000.
So moved.
Jeff first, seconded by Rocky. Any discussion?
How many, through the chair,
Yep.
how many places were requested quote?
I went to three, I got three contractors. The quotes ranged from the low quote, which was actually mainly heat pumps, but they pulled out because they've lost staff and they don't think they can get to us. The high quote was Hools, and they were significantly high. So Dave's World was, they were closer to the mainly heat pumps quote to begin with, but they also were the one contractor that spent a significant amount of time in the building researching what we would need and what would work. It was definitely the one that I felt most comfortable with as far as the amount of their thoroughness in going through what we needed here.
How many units are we gonna put in?
It's somewhere on the order of 15 total, but I would have to go back through the quote. There are some that weren't initially thought of. For instance, we have the IT closet across the hall, which is always running up around 85 to 90 degrees, which no one has ever had in any of their recommendations, but we're gonna put one in there because that's our lifeline, that's our IT.
You're talking the heads, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. There was another area that I can't remember exactly which one it was. Anyway, there were 2 areas total that hadn't been addressed. Police was not originally on the first quote that mainly heat pumps gave us, and that was because we hadn't planned to do police department. However, they had some issues with, the chief can probably explain better what was going on down there, but there was some issues with not being able to cool the patrol room and having to turn the air in there down to 62 degrees in order to get any cooling at all, and all the windows being fogged up. So since I was getting the quote anyway, we added that on, plus I can have, it's a good time to do it because I can have it paid for through the ARPA funding under air quality, so.
Now, this price does not include the service contract, correct?
Yeah, no, the service contract is extra if we want to purchase that. I happen to think it's a pretty good deal.
Wasn't it
It's a
50?
5,200 or 5,700, I don't have it in
Somewhere,
front of me.
I mean,
It's just over $5,000, but it covers the units for 12 years. It covers all the preventive maintenance. It allows us to actually, should we build a new facility, we can take the units with us rather than purchase new for another facility. Basically, in 12 years, it pays for itself. So they're recommending, yearly service on them. It covers all of that. It covers all the filters. It covers minor repairs. So
It's 5,200 yearly, correct?
52 or 57, I can't remember the exact number.
Per year,
That's yearly.
No, that is
life
upfront.
of the contract.
You pay for it upfront. It's good for 12 years.
And they do all the preventive maintenance.
Yes.
So if we,
Yes.
it's a no-brainer.
if we added 48, if we added 52 to 48, would that be
Yeah,
something
right
we
up
could
around
do? Could we amend-
$53,000.
Well, I'd like to make the amendment that we add that to the,
Okay.
Second.
So we're going to vote on the amendment on order number 27-2020, an amendment to add 5,200,
Or 57.
whatever the figure is.
whatever it is.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that
don't-
probably should word it as to add the,
Service.
the service contract as
Service
quoted.
contract as quoted to the $48,000.
Yeah.
That's the amendment. Right now, anybody any discussion on the amendment? If there's no discussion on the amendment, can I have I guess I need a roll call vote for that. So can I have a roll call vote on an amendment to add the service contract to the $48,000?
Peter Drapo,
Yes.
Ben Twitchell.
Yes.
Jerry Kirian.
Yes.
Joseph Gravel.
Yes.
Jeff West.
Yes.
Lee Trahan.
Yes.
Ray Karen.
Yes. Now we're going to vote on the original order, 27-21, as amended. Any discussion after the amendment? If there's no further discussion, can I have a roll call vote on the amended order number 27-2021, please?
Peter Drapo.
Yes.
Ben Twitchell.
Yes.
Jerry Kirian.
Yes.
Joseph Gravel.
Yes.
Jeff West.
Yes.
Lee Trahan.
Yes.
Ray Karen.
Yes. Resolution
Two
number
votes.
36-2021, providing for the
Right.
application. Whoops, sorry, Joe.
Is this time sensitive?
I would like to get it done as quickly as possible. They can be in here in 2 weeks from giving them the go-ahead. Obviously, though, it's an order, so you guys have to have a second reading, so that's at the pleasure of
I
the
make a
council.
motion, we forego the second reading.
Second.
Is this room included too?
Yes,
Okay, good.
yes, it's the
If you
entirety
wanna
of the
know
town
the
office.
reason-
So we can hear.
If you want to know the need of it, just look at the return ducts and the exit ducts up there. They're missing. There's none. There's no air in this building, and this is definitely needed for the welfare of the people here and the air they breathe. So Jeff has a motion on to forego the second reading on order number 27-2021, Let's open up discussion for the second reading. Any?
Can, one question. What happens if we're in here trying to pave the parking lot at the same time that they come in to do their work?
We won't, we're scheduling them separately. So, the parking lot should be paved as soon as they can. What's going on with the parking lot paving, just to update everybody, is that Pike is having trouble getting a subcontractor to come in and do it. Everybody's just very busy. But I will be arranging with Dave's World to not have those two things go on simultaneously.
Okay, so any other further discussion on the amended order number 27-2? It's an order. Tanya, can I have a roll call vote, please?
Peter Drappa,
Yes?
Ben Twitchell.
Yes.
Jerry Kirian,
Yes.
Joseph Gravel,
Yes.
Jeff West.
Yes.
Lee Trahan,
Yes.
Ray Karen.
Yes. Resolution number 36-2021, providing for application for a restaurant class 1, 2, 3, 4 liquor license renewal by Stanley Point after China Road, Maine.
So move.
Second.
Any discussion? No discussion, this is a resolution, we'll have a show of hands, please. All those in favor, raise your right hand. All those opposed? Resolution number 37-2021, providing for pole location permit, Central Maine Power Company, Consolidated Communications, and Company work order number.
So move.
Second?
Second. Any discussion?
That's on, Town Way, so it's not, does not belong to DOT. It's our,
Any other further discussion? Is that a question? Or is that Derek? No? Okay. If, just show of hands, all those in favor, raise your right hand. All those opposed. Resolution number 38-2021, providing for authorization for the town manager to change the town office hours to Monday through Thursday, 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. for a trial period commencing October 4th, 2021, and ending April 1st, 2021, per the attached proposal.
So moved.
Second.
First by Jeff, seconded by Lee Trahan. Discussion, please. Go ahead, Peter.
You think 6 o'clock's late enough?
I do. I think that what you'll probably see is a rush somewhere between 5 and 5:30. You know, most of our residents don't work further away than half an hour, so it ought to be sufficient.
So they're gonna take customers till 6?
Yes.
Okay.
So in reality, what happens is that because we lock the door at 6, we will have staff in here till approximately 6:15, closing out their doors.
I mean, I've talked to a lot of people about, the people I would listen, and for the most part, they don't oppose it, providing they'll be able to get in later every day, so.
You worked out with the Public Works Director because they're gonna go back to their 5-day-a-week schedule.
They are.
And you feel comfortable with that situation?
Yes, I believe looking at Fridays as the day closed rather than Mondays gives me the maximum amount of time to coordinate with Paul. Paul and I will still have adequate time. Right now, I don't get to see him on Fridays, and I wouldn't be here regularly on Fridays. But again, my position's a little bit different in that if we have stuff going on Fridays, I'll still be doing whatever has to be done, so.
And this does not include the library, obviously.
No, it does not. It also doesn't include Parks and Rec. Her schedule's variable as is. We have had our dispatcher down in police already working a 410 schedule. So nothing really changes there. That's a 24/7 operation, so.
Any other discussion? If there's no other discussion, it is a resolution, so all we have to do is a show of hands. All those in favor, raise your right hand. All those opposed? Moving on, resolution number 39. Oh, we did that one already, I'm
Yeah.
sorry about that. 11-40, a resolution, 2021,
So
providing
moved.
for authorization for the town manager to proclaim September 17th to 23rd Constitution Week as requested by the Daughters of the American
So
Revolution.
move.
Second. So moved by Jerry, seconded by Ben. Any discussion? If there is no further discussion, it's a resolution again. All those in favor with a show of hands? All those opposed? Unanimous? There is no, at this point in time, listed discussion items.
Make a motion that we adjourn.
Second. Motion to adjourn by Jerry. All those in favor, raise your hand. All those opposed?